Now today we are going to study an important chapter, that is microcirculation. This microcirculation is the most important and purposeful part of the circulation where the function of circulation is served, and that is the filtration and absorption of fluid and other electrolytes and nutrients to and from the blood vessels. Now this microcirculation consists of: number one is arterioles, second is the metarterioles, third is the precapillary sphincters, and fourth one is the capillaries. So these are the four parts of the microcirculation. Now arterioles that have got an internal diameter of about 10 to 15 micrometer, they are highly muscular portions, and because of the presence of smooth muscles, they can change the diameter of the vessels, and so that will result in a change in the blood flow depending upon the needs of the individual tissues. The second part of the microcirculation is the metarterioles. These are present at the ends of the arterioles, and they have got a much smaller diameter of about 5 to 9 micrometer, and they do not have any continuous muscular coat, but rather the muscular coat here is present at intermittent points. These metarterioles connect the arterioles with the capillaries. They are not innervated by any type of nerve fibers, and they have got a certain myogenic tone, and this myogenic tone helps in the control of blood flow to that particular tissue. The third portion of this microcirculation is the precapillary sphincters. These are actually present at the end of the metarterioles, and here a smooth muscle fiber encircles just before the start of the capillaries, and this precapillary sphincter regulates the blood flow to that particular capillary. Metarterioles and the precapillary sphincters, they are very much close to the tissues, so that there is an easy exchange of nutrients and the base products like hydrogen ions, carbon dioxide, and potassium ions, and other ions, or the nutrients, for example vitamins, minerals, etc., from the circulation into the interstitial space. Then the venules, they are larger than the arterioles, and their muscular wall is much weaker as compared to their corresponding arterioles, and they still can contract because of the presence of smooth muscles in their walls. This is the diagram showing the arterioles. These are the arteries, and then these arteries end up in the arterioles where the smooth muscles is present in a continuous fashion. Then is the metarterioles. These are the metarterioles where the smooth muscles are present sparingly, here and there only. There is not continuous coat. And then is the precapillary sphincter. These are the areas where the capillaries and the metarterioles just end up, and there is a single fiber of smooth muscle just when it empties into the capillaries. Now the structure of the capillary walls. The structure of the capillary wall consists of only two types of tissues. One is the single layer of endothelial cells that lines the inner part of the capillaries, which is supported from outside by a very thin basement membrane. Its thickness is very small. It's about 0.5 micrometer thick, and total number of capillaries in our body is about 10 billion. Now total surface area, if we stretch the capillaries of the body on a surface, that will be equal to about 600 meters squares. The internal diameter of the capillary is 4 to 9 micrometer, and because the cells are not more than 20 to 30 micrometer away from them. So this helps in the easy supply of oxygen and other nutrients to each and every cell of the body. Now in the capillary wall, two types of pores are present. One type of pore is called as the intercellular clefts. These intercellular clefts are actually thin curving slits between two adjacent endothelial cells, and the width of this cleft is 6 to 7 nanometer, which is much smaller than the albumin molecules. So that is why albumin molecules are not easily filtered through these intercellular clefts because of their smaller size. Now, to hold the two ends of the endothelial cells, there are small protein connections or filaments that will attach to the adjacent endothelial cells, and then that will hold these endothelial cells in its place. So small water soluble substance can easily pass through these slit pores. The second type of pores are present in the capillaries is called as the plasma lamel vesicles, which are also called as the cavuli. Cavuli means small caves. These cavules are actually formed with the help of a protein which is called as cavulin, and then cholesterol molecules, and then sphingolipid molecules, and they form small packets of plasma and proteins. These plasma lamel vesicles or cavuli, they will cause the endocytosis, that means the carrying inside of the fluid that is present in the extracellular fluid, and then that will be transferred to the other side of the cell membrane, or they can also help in the transcytosis. These plasma lamel vesicles, they sometimes combine and they will form a vesicular channel which starts from outside and pass through the cell membrane, and then that will end up in the inside of the capillaries. So this is the structure of the capillaries. You can see this is the endothelial nucleus, and this is the basement membrane showing here in blue color, and then sometimes there are tight junctions present between the two adjacent cells which does not allow the fluid to pass easily through these junctions. And then there are sometimes there are intercellular clefts, that means the cells here is connecting outside of the capillary to the inside, and there are sometimes wide pores present which are known as the fenestrations. So this is the structure of the cavuli. You can see it is formed by the cavulin molecules, the phospholipid molecules, sphingolipids, and the cholesterol molecules, and in this way there is actually an in-dipping of the plasma membrane or endothelial membrane into the cell's interior. So this is how a cavuli will be formed. First there is an invagination of the cavuli, and then subsequent invagination of another cavulin will actually combine with the first one, and that will open up on the other side of the cell. Again here you can see this is the endothelial cell, and then there is plasma proteins which are not allowed to go out of this interior of the capillary, and then there are small water molecules which can easily pass through these pores, and then we can come to it later. Then the lipid soluble substances can easily pass through the cell membrane, crossing the cell membrane and going to the other side. Now the pores in the different parts of our organs have got a different size. For example, in the brain, tight junctions are present, so only extremely small molecules can pass through these tight junctions. This is called as the blood-brain barrier. Now this is essential because the brain has to depend on a very fine concentration gradient of the different ions in and outside of the cell. So all the ions or other substances are not easily allowed to pass from the capillaries into the brain substance. The second organ is the liver, in which the cells are discontinuous with a very large gaps of about 10 to 1000 nanometer, and this will form sinusoids, and these sinusoids will allow large protein molecules to pass through them easily. This arrangement is very important because liver is synthesizing different types of proteins, and these proteins has to be transported through the blood. So through these sinusoids, these protein molecules can easily pass from the liver into the capillaries, and then also in the reverse direction. Now in the GIT, gastrointestinal tract, and the kidneys, the pore size is midway between these two, brain and the liver. It is about 20 to 100 nanometer, and here these pores are called as the fenestrae, or which is also called as the oval window, and this allows rapid movement of fluid and other ions to and from the kidney capillaries. Now the pore size in all these organs can change, and so that will also change the leakiness of through these capillaries. You can see here is the tight junctions, and these cells are approximated to each other very tightly, and these types of junctions are present in the skin or the muscles and the lungs and the CNS. And then as we go in this direction, these endothelial cells become more leaky, and they are fenestrated here in the exocrine glands, in the renal glomeruli, and in the intestinal mucosa. There are wide junctions present here, you can see here. And then in some area the cells are quite apart, they are discontinuous, and this type of arrangement is seen in liver and the spleen and the bone marrow. Now blood flow in the capillaries is not always continuous, but rather it is intermittent. This intermittent flow it depends upon a phenomena which is called as the vasomotion. In vasomotion, what happens is that about 10% of the total capillaries in any tissues, they are open at any given time. So these 10% capillaries will close, another set of capillaries will open, and then after few seconds those capillaries will be closed and other sets of capillaries will be open. This process is called as vasomotion, and this vasomotion is regulated by the concentration of oxygen in the tissues. When it falls in the tissues, for example, when we are using more oxygen, for example, when our muscles are doing exercise, there is relaxation of the sphincters, of the precapillary sphincters or the smooth muscles present in the metatarsiers, that will these sphincters will be opened for a much longer time. So now more blood will flow to the tissues. When the oxygen level becomes normal, then the sphincters will again contract. So despite all these things, there is an average rate of blood flow, and average capillary pressure, and average rate of diffusion through the capillaries.